you so much. Thank you so much, Leslie and Tobias. Thanks a million. I'm not sure if my... Okay, now it's hot. Perfect. Once again, my name is Andrei Degeler. I am a journalist. I am the head of news at durum.co, and it is my immense pleasure to be your stage host for the day. We have a very full and very tight program ahead of us, and I wanted to do just a tiny little bit of housekeeping announcements so that everyone can make the most out of this event. First, Wi-Fi. There is Wi-Fi in the venue, and downstairs on the screens you will see the network name and the password, so feel free to connect. At the same time, as was just announced, there is a no photos policy, as you might notice in all the signs on the walls, so please do not take any photos inside the venue. This is not allowed. On the other hand, we have our amazing photographer working in here as well as throughout the rest of the venue, and there will be great photos taken and published from these events, and actually it will happen almost in real time. So also, downstairs on the screens, you can take a look. You will see the link to our Flickr page, and every networking break, there will be new uploads of the photos that you can very much share with your network, with your colleagues, with anyone who you think it would make sense to share it with. So that is that, and as I said, we have a really full program, and the caliber of speakers coming to this event is absolutely immense and unbelievable. I'm feeling so lucky for being in this room. But at the same time, we know that all the events that Resilience Media has done so far are very much rooted in networking. And you know, I would hate to have to choose between sitting here and listening to these great speakers and being outside in the other room networking. But the great news is that you will not have to make this choice today, because we have put 2 networking breaks, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, as well as a lunch break in the middle. So there will be time for you to network. Also, there is an entire networking reception just after 5 o'clock when we finish with the stage programming. So you will have all the time in the world to both talk to your fellow attendees and at the same time to listen to everything that is happening on this stage. Now, the panels that we will have throughout the day, they are not particularly long. And you know, I do go to events pretty often as a journalist, and one thing that I really don't like in many panels that happen on stages is that introduction rounds take ages. Like literally half of a 25-minute panel can go through an introduction round. So with that in mind, I decided to do something else today. I will be the one introducing the panelists real quick, and we will be able to skip the entire intro round and then go straight into the meat of the conversation. I really hope that this will work much better than it usually does, and I really hope that this will allow you to get even more insights from every panelist, from every speaker today. And then, without further ado, it is time to start introducing our first panel, which is Backing Ukraine Nordic-Baltic Lessons. So this is exactly the collaboration focus that Leslie and Tobias just were talking about on this stage, and this panel brings together the perspectives from the industry, from entrepreneurship, from operational support, and our panelists will examine the present to focus on the future, and focus on what comes next and how this regional approach to collaboration between the Nordic-Baltic 8 and Ukraine will shape long-term European support and resilience. So, to talk about this and much more, I would like to invite to this stage our great panelists. First, Perry Boyle, the chairman at MITS Industries. He spent 30 years on Wall Street. He co-founded an investment bank. He helped run a global hedge fund, but now he is focused on developing Ukraine's defense industrial base with the goal of defeating Russia and integrating Ukraine into Europe's defense architecture. Please give a big round of applause to Perry Boyle. Do we have Perry? Oh, Oh, you okay. I will. Okay, so the moderate it will be moderated by Tobias Stone, who we just saw on this stage. Please take a seat. And now we have the speaker. So Perry, I just announced you, so you can come up there. Then we have Esben Gadsbøll. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's an investor, co-founder of WhiteAway.com and Tech Barbecue, which the entrepreneur and the VC types in the room might know about. He currently serves as the chairman of the Danish Tech Startups Association, and he's a co-founder of the Defense Innovation Highway, which is a platform that is ensuring Ukraine wins the innovation race through Nordic collaboration. Please give a big round of applause to Esben. And last but very much not least, we have Ragnar Sass, the co-founder of Estonia's 5th unicorn, Pipedrive CRM. He's an active angel investor. He has a portfolio of more than 50 companies. And also he's a founder of Help 99, which is an NGO that has delivered aid to over 200 Ukrainian military units so far. And currently he's building the defense tech ecosystem with Darkstar. That must be a familiar name to most of the people in the room. It's focusing on bringing combat-proving products from Ukraine to global markets and to Ukraine as well. So please give a big round of applause to our panel and Ragnar, and I'm leaving it to you for this conversation.
So guys, you three are very busy and have big opinions about all of this. What do we need to be doing right now? What's the most urgent thing?
We need to kill more Russians.
Kill more Russians? Kill more orcs,
yeah.
Ragnar? And what are you doing?
I think it's important to remember why we're here.
Yeah.
We're here because Russia invaded a European country.
Yep.
Okay? And until Russia is back in Russia, we're going to keep having these conferences. And this war could be over very quickly if Europe would provide Ukraine with everything it needs to win, and Ukraine will win. It's just a question of when and how much Ukrainian blood would be spilled before the victory.
And partly about Europe providing Ukraine with things, but I think increasingly also about Ukraine helping us. So Esben, you were talking about winning the tech race. Tell us about that.
Yes, so basically in Defense Innovation Highway, we have one focus, which is supporting whatever Nordic or Ukrainian innovation that can help Ukraine win the tech race. So we bring a lot of delegations. We just had 25 people from Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland in Lviv 2 weeks ago. That was, I think, around number 20 of the delegations that we brought with smart people down there, but also bringing a lot of Ukrainians here to connect to our industry, to our military, so our military can learn, but also so we can see much more collaboration. So I think for us, very early on, it was clear that this is a race of technology. It's by far the most innovative war since Second World War. And our frustration when we started was that we have so many smart people and so many resources in the Nordic countries. And then you have a country like Ukraine where you have such a high speed, but you miss resources or you miss connections to some experts in these domains. So when we started, we had this idea that in Ukraine there would be a speed of innovation at 100, and in Nordic countries in general it would be around 5. So I think the good news is that it just moved in Denmark from, let's say, 7 to 8. So we are in a good direction. But there is so much more we can do. We have so many smart people in our universities. How can we connect them to the challenges in the front line? How can we make sure they are not just innovating for some future defense scenario in 5 years, but actually innovating on something that will be applied in Ukraine rather fast, so we can connect to reality and help Ukraine win this terrible war.
And Ragnar, connecting people to the front lines so they innovate the right things. Talk to us about that, because you're doing a lot on that.
Yeah, I think that, by the way, I need to tell that, after a very long time, maybe last month, I can be more positive, because everybody in the world now sees Ukraine tech is winning. And we are probably in the most important breaking point, because as we all saw over the weekend, probably the next real parade will be done in Kiev soon. But if you go back to the challenges with Israel, is that Ukraine has done basically everything which everybody believed is not possible. They have proven. But what they really need is that, they are running out of manpower. And I believe what you just said, we need to step up significantly, take a lead as a Europe to basically help to basically now finalize this war, which means exactly that we need any kind of super smart people joining Is it Ukrainian companies or any other real company which has combat-proven products? Not like hype we have seen so much in Europe, because there are disconnected world. You can fundraise in Europe crazy amount of money without having product. Not in Ukraine. Like, in Ukraine, you just build the product, you go and deliver results, and then sometimes you don't need fundraise, because then you will get money immediately to sell your product. But the biggest challenge that we have is that to push exactly more and more talented people to defense, to build a product which could save us in Europe. Because if Russia will send this armor now to the Baltic states, it will be very bloody. And that's the fact, we are not ready. The only country who is ready in this war is Ukraine. And we need to basically build ourselves like beyond the words. I see, by the way, promising parts, like, I see finally bureaucrats are moving some cases fast, but it's not enough. So we need probably 5x more speed and people, because exactly, it's just, there is success by Ukraine, but we need to play our part.
So we founded this conference in 2024 to have that conversation. We need to speed up. We need to get ready. Why are we still having that conversation here now? What's holding it up?
Oh,
where to start?
Yeah, so many reasons. The political rhetoric is not matched by the actions. And then I think militaries in general are built for standardization, not for innovation, and are very reluctant to change. I also think there's a culture of risk aversion to changing. It's just safer to keep doing the same thing. But I think I want to build on what Ragnar was saying and what Esben was saying. This is not, it's not Ukraine's war, it's Europe's war. And Russia does not want to stop at Kyiv. Russia is very clear. Anybody who reads Russian newspapers, listens to Russian television, goes to school in Russia, Russia has a grand design, and you were a part of it. So private companies can do what governments can't do. And this is what my company, MITS Capital, is trying to do. We are going to drag Europe into integrating Ukraine into its defense architecture, whether it wants to or not. And so, for example, I run a company in Ukraine, but I'm also the chairman of a Danish company, MITS Industries, which has companies in Ukraine that do counter-drone and electronic warfare and signals intelligence. And we'll probably make an acquisition in Denmark fairly quickly. Why Denmark? Because Denmark is a small country that cannot have either the manpower or the defense industrial base to defend itself. So it has to work with partners. And partnering with Ukraine seems pretty smart, given that the US cavalry has been explicit. It is not coming. So Europe is going to be left on its own when Russia comes. And you're not ready. And Ukraine is the only country that is ready. So let's get you ready. There's so much that can be done. Esben, you mentioned using all the smart people here. Like, we're going to set up an electronics research lab with DTU in one of our companies. We're going to do robotics with the Odense guys. We're going to, we have an import-export business already set up to move things back and forth. Like, we're ready to go. But when I read in the newspaper that JEFCO, the Defense Alliance, has created this maritime integration between the Nordics and the UK, I'm like, yes, great step forward. Where is the most successful Navy of the 21st century in that dialogue? Like, why exclude Ukraine from that? Ukraine has sunk more Russian ships tonnage than any other country in 80 years. Like, this seems strange to me. And so there's a lot of rhetoric, stand with Ukraine, stand with Ukraine. But whenever there's an opportunity to include Ukraine, Ukraine is often left out of the dialogue.
So Ragnar, you bring Ukraine into all of this with everything you do. What works? So I'd love to hear from you and Esben. What in all the stuff you've been doing now, what are you finding is working that other people could be learning from?
No, also we need to understand why Ukraine is successful. Is that, say army are totally reformed. Let's start with that. Like, end of the day, all is about the people. And what is Ukraine's success is that it has the strongest civil society who joined the army. So army is today made of literally the best IT guys I know. So they are running it, and that's exactly what we have learned, that what we are doing in Estonia is that we have pushed so many tech guys joining military. Like you, Tobias, as well joined the army. That's exactly the way. We just cannot help, hey, please God, not the God, but government do the thing. We need to step in and get the best people joining military internally to help to change it. That's the key element, because exactly, I have been, before the full-scale war started, I was also always looking and still looking, military is very ineffective, slow and centralized. What is Ukraine has is decentralized ecosystem. If you don't move here, you can move here, you can move here. And that's what drives them. So we need to basically change the topic from that side. We need to start to basically prepare for the real war. And I know everybody's like, what do you mean? Like, you know, one drone here, we are in the war, and drones are already, like, so many places, you know. And the other thing, which is totally mindset change, is that as we are facing so huge threats, then Ukraine allowing now private air defense companies. That's the model. We cannot do that the other ways also in Europe. In Estonia now, I know Tallinn is talking basically the same things that, like, exactly electrical grid company should have their own defense unit. And that's exactly those changes. We need to think fundamentally differently, learn from that. Not everything what Ukraine is doing, we cannot copy indeed, because they are in hot war. We are not yet. But I think the first thing is helping the best people to fill up and lead that change internally. That's the most critical thing, because why Ukraine is so successful is ecosystem. And we need to look what is part of the ecosystem, because, as I said, like just a few minutes ago, I am finally positive that Ukraine basically is winning. And this is because of strong ecosystem, because what is the biggest thing is that whatever is working today might not work and probably will not work after 2-3 months. So the question is, who builds the next version? Who builds the next thing? And you will never have one silver bullet. Let's build a super weapon which is lasers. No, you need 10, 15 systems which competing each other. And one moment, system number 1 works, after 6 months, system number 2. So that's the key elements, that how we can copy those ecosystem elements, having, you know, engineers working, military, procurement, government also basically making the laws. This is the maybe the most critical change what we need to build and doing it. And also, let me be frank here, every country needs to understand, your national security is your decision. You cannot anymore just hope some big umbrella organization going and help you. Those things happening in ultra speed, and you need to be ready for taking those risks down.
Esben.
So, Toby, you asked before, why are we still having this discussion? Since we are working with Nordics, but also talking a lot with Baltics, I think there is different answers for the different countries. So whether you have a history with Russia, being their neighbor or being part of Soviet, you are much more afraid that this is coming back, where in Denmark we have been under an American security umbrella, so we've kind of relaxed. And so for us, we have many different perspectives that we come into this reality with. So I think from a Danish side, a lot happened when Trump was elected, because after that, it was all about we want to help Ukraine. But after Trump, it was clear that it's also about our security. So much more of our work since then have been about how we can support Ukraine in a way that would also strengthen Denmark.
Yeah.
If you take a country like Finland, they have a war trauma from Second World War. It was so terrible to them. So my feeling with Finland is that they are in so many ways prepared, but that have also in some ways made them lazy, because they are used to be the best in Europe. And suddenly Ukraine is moving with a speed that is 10, 20x the speed of innovation in Finland. So the Danes are actually going in many ways much more to Ukraine, because we know we are, sorry my friends, but we are totally fucked. We need to take everything and build it up and learn a lot from Ukraine, where the Finns need to get much more on board with learning from Ukraine, because they're used to be the best in class, where we were not used to be that. So we have many different outcomes for going into this situation.
And on that point, it was now in the media that during the hedgehog exercise last year, the British officer said, we're fucked. So going back to that point, do you think that message is actually reaching the people that it needs to reach? Do they recognize that? we're fucked.
I think we're in a mix between these
Yeah.
things. Yeah. I think what have surprised me working with militaries, which is new to me, I don't have a military background, is that you kind of learn what you have to do, and this is how things work. And that's what you talked about, all these civilians getting into the military in Ukraine. So I hope we are not spending too much of all the money that we are going to spend on military on the old stuff, preparing for the old wars. I'm afraid we are spending a lot of money on stuff that is still living in the previous mindset of fighting a war, and how to strike that balance. I'm not an expert in naval domain, but often you hear in the media right now in Denmark that, is it right to use that much money on frigates? Should we do some of the naval thing? And so I think our contribution is not to be the experts in the room, but now we will have our first conference in naval down in Ukraine in June, because we want to connect militaries and industries, because we need to get on board with the lessons learned from Ukraine.
Perry, then.
But I think, that, by the way, the sad is this message is not working, by the way. We have now the same exercise, by the way, in Estonia as we talked. But what I just saw literally today evening is that the most advanced technological army beside US is also Israel. And what we see now, Hezbollah is destroying a lot of armor with FPV drone. Sorry, what? So the sad as it is, I believe that every army need to learn those things personally. So it's and the biggest thing, how we were still talking 2026 that so many military officers cannot visit Ukraine because of legal reasons. That's the biggest absurd what you can be. Estonians can, but we are just a tiny country. And I was over the weekend in my summer house, basically, and this is literally 30-40 kilometers from Russian border. So I know that probably ISR drones are already top of that. But the point is that exactly those failures, we need to deliver those failures. Like army is only learning when they are getting beaten up. But you guys, isn't it Denmark did some exercise or something that was marine drones or something? Wasn't it Denmark? Because there was some marine exercise which Ukraine and Magura drones was destroying like basically everything.
I don't think it was in
that was Portugal. In Portugal,
yeah.
yes. Well, I love Denmark, okay? But Denmark is a conservative country that is very... because it is so, the government is so respected in Denmark, but it's also controlled. And every tax dollar is, audited in Ukraine. So, like in Denmark, when I'm in Ukraine, I spend half my time with military people. Okay, I've never met anybody in the Danish military. I have a Danish defense company. I've never met anybody in the Danish military. Okay, you have Dalo in between the military and the private sector. There's nothing wrong with Dalo, but that separation slows down the demand signal. And like I was just with the chief of staff of Azov, and we're talking about like what he needs for electronic warfare for the next 3 months. Those conversations don't happen in this country. And until they do happen in this country, everything's going to be slow. One of the lessons of Ukraine is empower the combat commands to purchase what works. Okay, don't just shove stuff on them and tell them, figure it out. So for example, the Ukrainian armed forces, the government of Ukraine gives 20% of its budget directly to the brigades to spend on anything they think they need to win. Plus, brigades also raise money independently, generally for more humanitarian things, for more medical supplies. But that 20% of their budget is why Ukraine is innovative. And the fact that that does not exist in Denmark or any NATO country is why you are not innovative and cannot be innovative until this occurs. You have to restructure your approach to war, to the system of war. This obsession with drones is very unhealthy. Okay, drones are a middle stage technology in how war is going to evolve. It's robots, artificial intelligence, secure communications. These are the things that will drive the future of warfare and save Danish lives. and create asymmetry with the enemy. This is not the mentality of what's happening in this country today. And until it is, we're going to keep having these conversations.
Fantastic. Come and find these guys during the day. They're all doing really leading things. Thank you very much for sharing that and setting the tone for the rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.